Welcome. Milling around CoosBay, steering and suspension, or we like to affectionately call it white knuckles and windstorms. Anybody relate to that at all?
Oh, yeah.
Great. Well, my name is Robert Henderson, and we have a company called Henderson's Lineup. Started back in 1961, and this is our house, and our shop was connected to our house. And so I literally did grow up around the business. My mom fed me with a brake spoon when I was a kid. So I gotta find the right people that laugh at that. You gotta know what a brake spoon is.
Yeah, it's an age thing.
Yeah. And so I'm grateful for my folks, my mom and dad. I see some of you guys served. My dad was in the 2nd Ward. He flew in D-Day, the Battle of Bulge, A-20s and A-26s. So thank you for those of you that put your life on the line to serve our country. I appreciate that. And I appreciate my folks very much. And my dad, I remember watching him read his trade publications at night. He didn't want to be just a parts changer. He wanted to understand why systems work, how they work. So I'm grateful for his influence in my life. But you know, by the time I turned 16, when I was about 16 or 17 years old, none of you guys probably relate to this, but I was about 17, 18 years old. I didn't think my dad knew that much. I didn't think he was that smart. And so it was amazing how smart he got by the time I turned 20 or 21. So he didn't like my friends a whole lot, so one day I had enough, so I towed my 55 Chevy down to my buddy's house, and we proceeded to build a motor. I put a new set of shocks on the front, put air shocks on the back, which I would never do now. It had shackles on the back when I bought it, so the tires would fit. The 55 Chevys, the tire fender was real close on the 55. So everything I wouldn't recommend or wouldn't do now, I had it on there because I was only interested in one thing at that point in time in my life. It was really about speed. I had my balance and blueprinted 292, 60 thousandths over 283, solid lifter cam, Muncie 4-speed. It ran good. Well, one Saturday morning, about 10 o'clock in the morning, me and my buddies started drinking Sliss malt liquor and smoking dope. Back in those days, it wasn't legal. Anybody remember those days? Anyway, so that was about 10 o'clock in the morning, and I think I know why my dad didn't like my friends very much. And so we were racing around the countryside, and it got dark, time to go to town. So we made one pass through town, another pass through town, hit the throttle at about a block stretch there before you turn, cruise the other way in the gut, and it ran good, it ran really strong, I couldn't stop. Slid the tires, crash! Well, because the other guy hit his car, all I did was break out my left front headlight. Didn't hurt his rig at all. So naturally, I throw the keys in the seat and said, boys, we're walking home. Before I kill somebody or hurt some, destroy my car. No, I didn't. I took off. Instead of going back through town, I went to a residential zone, 25 mile an hour zone, wide open. First, second, speed shifting, bang, third gear, between 65 and 75 miles an hour, accelerating very hard. And the kid I went to school with had a new Chevy 4x4, black Chevy 4x4, backed out right in front of me. And all I can tell you was that car went off the road, back onto the road. There was a party, there was people everywhere. There was no sidewalks. It was dirt on both sides of the street back then. And I'll never forget it, looking in that rear mirror, as long as I live, saying to myself, whatever happened back there, it wasn't me. And so I kind of settled down, and it took me a while later on, many years later, I became a follower of Jesus Christ. I found this verse in the Bible. I'm going to paraphrase it, my paraphrase. Angels have to keep knuckleheads like me alive long enough to come to know Christ as their Savior. So that's what happened that night, because it wasn't me driving it. But since then, one of the things that we always ask people, in the event of emergency, would you like to know what your motorhome's going to do? And most people say, yeah, I would like to know that. And so that's one of the things that we ask people when we're doing what we're going to talk about today, our road performance assessment. We'll do a quick lane change to see how the coach responds in the event of emergency. And so I was grateful for my parents. I remember going back and knocking on my dad's front door, my mom and dad's front door. I'd worked for 2 places, and both of them were crooks running the place. One place, we were supposed to balance the tires, didn't have an adapter to fit his bubble balancer, which we hated anyway. My dad spun balanced everything on the car. he said, just pound weights on there anyway, we're getting paid for it. I lost my job, quit my job there, went to work for a company-owned Chevron station. But man, I got it made, and I worked for a corporation, and I worked my way up the corporate ladder. And every day we came to work, the manager and assistant manager said, the till's short, somebody's been stealing money, accused us of stealing money. He accused a coworker, said it was me, so I got in a fight with him, lost my job there, and I found myself cleaning silk screens in a silk screen t-shirt factory with another friend of mine. The solvent would splash up over the gloves. I get off work and my hands are tingling from having solvent on them all day. I went back and knocked on my mom and dad's door, the front door there of the house, and knocked on the front door and said, Dad, I don't care what you pay me, I want to go back to work for you again, because he was honest. My dad always said, there's enough stuff wrong with the person's vehicle, you never ever have to think about doing something that wasn't needed. So, that's true. If you want a motorhome, you know that's true. And I own two of them. I must really have rocks in my head, huh? But I love motorhomes. And I'm grateful for my parents. Both of them are gone now, but I'm grateful for that example that they set for me. And I have my better half, Barbara's here, over there in the front. She's going to help take a financial pre-inspection. Her job is a lot harder than mine. She has to try to keep me in alignment, and that's really hard. I have Mike DeMith on the back there. Mike's one of our show helpers and helps with marketing, a lot of other things. We have our local dealer here. Jeff Bayshore Automotive, or our local dealer.
Bayshore Auto and our man.
Yeah, you gotta put that on together. Yeah. So, okay, so I want to show you, this is our company motorhome here. This is actually a Ford F-53 Class A motorhome. And that's how it handled. I bought it from the dealer. I drove it home like that. No, I'm lying. When I first bought that motorhome, I pulled out of a gas station and filled it up after I drove home from Portland, 250 miles, and I counted the sways 1, 2, 3, 4.5 times before it finally settled down after I pulled out of the gas station and brought it home. So we did a couple things to that that weren't quite stock. One of the things we did on the back of it, before we get into the rest of the presentation, we put a double sway bar kit. My brother John designed some brackets where we could put a forward mount and a rearward mount sway bar in addition to the little tiny factory one that's on there. And as you notice, there's 4 shock absorbers back here as well. So we put quad shocks on all 4 corners. Now you think, oh, the ride must be horrible on it because you got all that shocks sweat. No, it actually rode better, right, Barb?
Oh, yeah.
Less vibrations, less road noise with the double FSD. The frequency selective dampening cone is actually cut down. More vibration and road noise. There's some of the kits. We'll get into some of that stuff. Well, while we're talking about it, how many people do have the Ford Class A motorhome here? Okay, so we have quite a few Ford Class A. Let's see, how about Freightliner diesel pushers? Okay, quite a few Freightliners there. Monaco 8-bag chassis. Quite a few Monaco 8-bag chassis here. Spartan motorhomes. Spartan chassis. No Spartans, any country coaches?
Country coach.
All right, I've seen some country coaches out there, right on. Okay, what did I miss?
Workhorse.
Workhorse, any workhorses? Couple workhorses, good chassis. Any sprinters? Sprinter chassis, okay, so we got Sprinter chassis here. Magnum chassis, somebody said? Wow, tip. Tip and power glide, okay, we work on those too. Any Class C's here besides any Class C E450s? E350, E450s. Okay. What else did I miss? Now that FMCA is letting folks come in with fifth wheels, are any fifth wheel owners in there? Not? Okay, good. I don't have to worry about any of the trailer stuff today. That's good. As you can see, I have a variety of rigs here, so I'm going to try to do my best to share something that'll benefit everybody that's here today. So what's the motto?
Be prepared.
Be prepared, right? That's it, be prepared. So I'm going to have my wife come up here and share a little bit about this because she was actually driving our old motorhome at the time, which we still own, which we love it so much. It's a Safari Trek. Barb, would you come up and share a little bit about that picture?
I'd be
She
glad
was
to.
driving.
I was not driving that.
Thank you.
We just came out of Winnebago, Nebraska. I guess it's no relation to the Winnebago Motorhome. And it got really windy. Now, we had a lot of modifications on the old Safari Trek. It drove really good. But you know when it gets so windy, it's windy no matter what. So Robert kind of wakes up and he starts videoing me on his cell phone. And I said, no, it's really windy. But he kept it up. He thought it was a photo opportunity. And I said, it is really windy. And all of a sudden the traffic started backing up. And that's what we had in front of us. And I told him, I told you it was windy. So I let him take over. Well, they detoured us around dirt roads anyway.
Yep, so good, on some dirt. I love driving on dirt. That's what we used to race stock cars, so. I can't help it. My mother beat me with the steering wheel when I was a kid.
We're talking the jokes. Sorry.
So how to avoid unmet expectations? You run a coach through the road performance assessment. So we want to know what to expect in advance. It's too late once you're in that situation. So our job is to really make the invisible visible. If we can make the invisible visible, then we've done our job, because no one likes surprises unless they are fun surprises. We were, Rich was up there helping me do we were doing weigh-in inspections up at a fifth wheel rally, and the customer just wanted it weighed. And we did bring our scales. I don't know if there's any place level enough around here to weigh them, but we did bring our scales with us, because weights are very important. You'll find out as we get into this. But anyway, one of the last rigs that we checked out, I asked the guy 2 times. I said, sir, do you have any problems or any complaints to this rig? Nope. Nope, no problems, no complaints. When we got underneath there, we saw that he was literally peeling the rubber off. His tires were well into the cord at 3,000 miles, and the U-bolts were gone. The nuts on 2 U-bolt nuts were completely gone. The other ones were finger tight. He was ready to lose the whole axle out of underneath of that rig. So one of the things we offer people here, if I can't do the weighs, we will do some complimentary inspections. That's first come, first served. And we'll do our best to check rigs out for you.
I just gotta have a picture of that, sorry.
You like that dog? Okay, so one of the things we found with RVs when we started doing it, we do one job one day, it turned out great. Next job we do the next day, same chassis, different coach, we got different outcomes. Like, oh, this is really frustrating, because I hated unmet expectations. So a lot of factors. You got the wheelbase length, how much overhang does it have? What is the length of the wheelbase period? Because a shorter wheelbase motorhomes tend to be more porpoising, more handling problems with them. How much overhang do they have past the side? What's the width of the coach in relation to the track of the axle? How high is it? With their basement model motorhomes, we have a lot of storage space which underneath here, which pushes our center of gravity up higher and higher, so we have more problems with handling because of that. And then, of course, aerodynamics. We're driving a sail down the road, so you have a lot of factors that go along with that. And there is things you can actually do to improve the aerodynamics as well. So weight distribution is a problem.
Oh, God.
Got that at Home Depot the other day. It's a do-it-yourselfer. Okay. This is actually from one of our dealers. Now, that's got a V10 Ford in that motorhome. And to pull the front wheels off the ground of a rig, it takes a lot of horsepower to do that. And I can tell you, that's not pulling the front wheels off the ground because it had a lot of horsepower. It's because of the amount of overhang you had on that suspension. So definitely a problem. I mean,
Makes me seasick.
yeah, so like driving a teeter-totter. So the most important thing we owe you is an accurate diagnosis. There's a thing in our industry where somebody says, well, just go throw some shocks on that thing. You know, go throw this at that thing. We don't like doing things. I don't like anybody throwing anything at my vehicle. I want to know why I'm going to do it, what to expect from it, what's the outcome. Then I want to verify that outcome when I get done. So this is a little video of the RPA, just a short overview of it.
Welcome to Henderson's lineup, the home of the Road Performance Assessment, or RPA for short. The Road Performance Assessment is a process designed to assess an RV's steering and handling characteristics and components to optimize safety and handling while providing maximum comfort. The RPA is 3 phases, and it begins with the discovery phase. We begin with an initial look over of the coach and then take it out on the road with you through a series of tests. We rate how it handles, as well as the suspension, the steering, ride quality, and much more.
Road performance assessment, where we take the customer out and assess how the coach handles, steers, stability, safety, braking, all the things you evaluate with the coach and with the customer's concerns.
Secondly, back at the shop, we take your coach through the diagnostic phase. We thoroughly inspect all the steering and suspension components and follow a check sheet with over 50 inspection points. Your coach is weighed on all 4 corners, as well as having the overhang versus wheelbase measured. Last, we move to the third and final phase, the delivery phase. This is when you, the customer, are provided with any suggestions for improving your RV's steering, handling, or suspension, as well as safety issues. You then choose any improvements you would like to make, the technicians do the work, and then we, with you, take the coach out for a final test drive to verify the improvements. And then you drive to verify as well. For any further questions, please visit hendersonslineup.com or call us at 541-479-2882. We look forward to serving you for safer and happier driving.
I have a question for you. How many paid more for their motorhome than they did their first house? Second house? Do I hear a third house? Do I hear a fourth? That's about the highest they've had. So it was a sizable investment, and I'll never forget this one couple. They said, man, we saved up our money for years and years. We finally retired. We got this RV, and we want to go out and drive it, but we're like scared to drive the thing now because it's freaking them out, you know? And so it's kind of like the story of this mouse married the elephant. This mouse married the elephant, and they checked in. The dinner, the ambiance was great at the restaurant. They had the honeymoon suite. Everything was just perfect. And so the room starts walking down the hallway, and the room to the door to the honeymoon suite's open, and this mouse is just in there crying uncontrollably. And he has to step in there, and he goes, "What's wrong?" And the mouse says, "My elephant died." And the roomster says, "That's terrible." And the mouse says, "Yeah, it's just my luck. One night of romance, I'll be digging a grave the rest of my life."
I see her response. Your dad roll over every time you say anything.
The point I'm making is that a lot of people never drive a motorhome before they buy it. They fall in love with what? The floor plan. Yeah, and so you get this thing and you go, whoa, what's going on here? And so I used to teach at Life on Wheels, and I love it when people hadn't bought their motorhome yet. I could come in and teach them a lot of this stuff, what to look for on the front side, because we're all dumb, we're just dumb about different things. I'm sure every one of you guys could be up here teaching me something that I don't know something about. And so our job is to inform and educate. That's why we spend a lot of time on education. So again, we will sign up for inspections. This is a copy. We gave copies of the RPA form so you can see what it looks like when we do the RPA at the shop. We'll use a different, much shorter abbreviated one for just doing the visual inspection. But you can see how we rate the steering and handling. We rate the play before and afterward. We rate tail wag before and afterward. We want to know what your complaint is, and then we diagnose what we felt on it. We weigh it on all 4 corners. We look at the overhang ratio in relation to the wheelbase ratio. We look at the weight ratio front to rear, because there's all numbers that affect how a coach is going to handle, and also can affect how you want to do your loading on your coach as well. Tire pressure is very important. If your tire pressures aren't set properly, you get too much contact on the road. If it's too low a tire pressure, then it can overheat. If you have too high a tire pressure, you don't have enough contact patch on the road, more of a tendency to wander. It's also going to ride rougher than it should. So tire pressures are very important. It doesn't always take a lot of tire pressure to make a difference. Alignment basics. I'll hit a couple of the alignment things real quick. Alignment is very important to decrease resistance. We talked about the toe end. 1/8 of an inch is equal to 28 feet of side scrub per mile. But this is a basic camber is the inward or outward lean at the top of the tire. And caster, we hear people talking about, well, I need to increase my caster on my motorhome. What is that? I'll relate it the simplest way I can. And you guys ever ride your bicycle with no hands when you were a kid?
Yeah.
Did you ever try flipping your handlebars around backward and try to ride with no hands? It didn't work because that negative caster is all over the road. So if you increase caster, typically it's going to give us a little bit better directional stability. Probably don't ride our bikes as much as we used to with no hands. Anyway, I don't either. There's another picture. Camber. When the load is on, this is why you should get your vehicle lined up when you have it fully loaded, because things do change when you get the weight on it. So leaning out too much at the top is called excess positive. Now, when our axles are not in parallel, you can see what happens. The vehicle will travel in a circle. This is a tandem coach, works the same way. Rear axles are not parallel. See what's happening? It's trying to go in a circle. And you can see that it's going to leave rubber dragging down the road when it does that. So the front driver and ultimately the steer tires, you can see the rubber that's left on the road because it's scraping the rubber off the tires. And here's the actual on the back side of this. We rate the steering and suspension components on a 1 to 3 scale. One being actually this one here might have to depend on what scale you got, but we rate them numerically as well, and then come up with a plan. Now, I wanted to show the toe end because this is the most critical one. Remember I told you that toe end was towed out, that axle, and that when Rich and I checked the toe end on it, it was towed out over 1.25 inches. And a toe end 1/8 of an inch is equal to 28 feet of side stroke per mile. That's why those tires were ready to blow in 3,000 miles. We saw Barb and I ran across the motorhome out by Denio Junction, way out in the middle of nowhere. If anybody knows where Denio Junction is, there was a lady out there 20 miles away from there, and she had worn out a set of tires, blew out the right front in 1,000 miles. Blew out that. So this is the most critical of all the tire wear angles. That's the one that really takes them down in a hurry. But interestingly enough, you see that this is not pulling. So if I say, well, my motorhome's not pulling, I know it must be in alignment. Not necessarily. You can see when the toe end's off, it's not pulling one way or the other, it's just wearing tires out. Typically, if they're towed out too much, you're going to have more of a wandering condition, which is this is the condition here. When they're further apart in the front than they are at the rear, that's what's toe out. And typically, they'll wander more on you like that. So let's talk about some of the common complaints and solutions. I don't know if we'll make it through all 10 of them today. We have quite a bit, but this is one of the things that we do hear a lot of is play in the steering. And actually, the first part that we made for the old Chevy Class A motorhomes was a bushing idler support, and they always had slop in them. And that was a pretty typical problem. So I'll pass that around. A little bit heavy. You're going to get a little exercise here in this class from no charge.
Don't drop it on your knee.
And this one here has bearings in it, and it's sounds like you need a little. We didn't lubricate this before we put it in. It's got a little squeak to it. This is the one that we have in the ours with the bearings in it. I'll pass that one around. So steering play. What causes steering play? Loose parts. It could be a steering gear that's simply out of adjustment. If your steering gear is not adjusted right, or if you have a steering gear that's non-adjustable, there's quite a few steering gears that are made with no adjustment on them from the factory. And that's like what you see is what you get, and we have to replace it with a blueprinted box typically to take care of that problem. So the bell crank's one of the things that helps take play out of the steering. If there's play in any of your joints at all, that'll cause movement, slack. Now I want to get into another really common complaint is poor return. One of the things we do when we're doing a road performance assessment, we'll pull up to a corner, get halfway through the corner, let go of the steering wheel. Does the coach continue off the road or does it come back straight? We'll try that at high speed and low speed because returnability, if you have poor returnability of your vehicle, you're going to find yourself overcorrecting as you go down the road. Like seesaw, and it gets really irritating. Does it return back from one side easier than the other? Could be a steering gear over-adjusted. It could be an alignment problem. It could be a sticky part. And I'm going to pass around the Freightliner bell crank, and this is a case of a sticky part. They had a bushing design. In order to keep the side play from being an issue, they preload the heck out of this, and you see they have a little tiny surface in there with no bearings in it. You can see how hard this thing is to turn, and so it can create that stickiness in the steering.
Remember to hold on two hands this time.
Yes, don't drop that. And ours has double taper roller bearings, and this one here is a little bit easier to.
Okay, here you go.
Two hands.
So we want to free up that steering as much as we can. We don't want it binding on you. Okay, for the Freightliners, one of the things that we do is we'll pull that arm off and make sure that bell crank is not sticky or binding. You can see down here, we pull it off, we test that shaft to see if we have sticking or binding, because we don't want to sell you something that you don't need. And every once in a while, we'll find one that's actually feels pretty good. But with that design, that doesn't happen too often. That's why we went to the tapered. Now, the new Freightliners with a heavier axle, they actually went to a bearing design on the new Freightliners. Road wander. Rigs wandering from one side of the road to the other. That could be steering gear adjustment. You're going to see some overlap because we're talking systems. Systems all interact and affect each other. Alignment problems. Weight distribution, really important on that weight distribution. Our rule of thumb is with a Class A diesel or most Class A gas, we want to have a 1/3, 2/3 ratio. In other words, we have 10,000 pounds on the rear axle. We want to have 5,000 pounds up on the front axle. You can get by with less of that on a Class C, but with a Class A motorhome, that's our rule of thumb. However, you have a workhorse. We found with a workhorse, we need 55% as our baseline. That front axle's pushed pretty far forward, so it doesn't have as much front overhang to help hold it down. So we want to run a higher weight ratio on the front of that chassis. So one of the things for reducing wander, we use a steering device called the Safety Plus. You guys be happy I didn't bring my heavy one. This is one for a smaller Class C or smaller Class A. It's got a hydraulic cylinder here and a spring that's under a constant preload. I'll push on this, you can see it takes a real hard force to get it off center. It has a real crisp, positive center point to it. That's why these have to be taken out and road tested and adjusted. We have a picture, I don't know if I have it with me or not, we have a picture somebody brought me up today. Well, Jim, did you bring that up? A friend of yours that blew a front tire out on a 2005, and they weren't old tires, my understanding. They weren't like super old tires or anything really. And he blew out the right front tire and darn near lost his life. His wife went flying out of the motorhome, ripped the whole front end off of that thing, went off the road, and that was pretty devastating. The first thing he did, he saw the 7:30 this morning for Coach's free prices, and I want one of those put on my motorhome. So we'll pass this around too.
Yeah, thank you.
And you can see how the spring is under a constant preload. That's why I like this design. Some of them that they have, the springs are more relaxed or they stretch. This is my favorite design, but like on the Power Glide chassis, if you have the ZF front underneath the Power Glide or a Country Coach with a New Way suspension, the Safety Plus will not fit it, so you have to use a different design that's strictly a spring only. But that's a real important safety device, and it will help you with your wandering and rut tracking and wind as well. And we also have a trim unit that we can add on to the Safety Plus, so you can use your safety, like when you're going, we just got back, anybody drive from Montana, Salt Lake City on through, Montana through, they have gusts up to 70 miles an hour there. You're shaking your head. That, you get those real heavy crosswinds. That way you can use, this will actually allow us to use the Safety Plus to help hold some side pressure on it as well. And that's called our SuperSteer trim unit. So what else can cause wandering? If you have the long leaf springs like your Fords or your workhorse chassis, they have long leaf springs in there designed to give you a softer ride. And you can see the cornering forces that are working against those springs. So that can cause some road wander. If there's any movement in the shackles here, that can cause there to be the axles are flexing around as you move down the road. So a track bar which attaches to the frame and goes down to the axle will help with that. And this is a front track bar made by Roadmaster. We have our rear track bars are made by SuperSteer. So it attaches to the leaf spring, attaches to the frame. In crosswinds, track bars help in crosswinds as well as the steering control units. But for the steering control unit to work at its best, the track bars help hold everything positive, so it doesn't give you as much movement from the crosswinds and passing trucks.
That's the one we have trouble with.
Yeah,
I had to hold and steer into it.
yeah. So tail wagging the dog, same kind of a situation. Now we got the back end moving around back there as you go down the road. What causes that? Similar to excessive overhang, we have a lot of overhang past the rear end. Average gas coach has like 66% overhang. Average diesel pusher is about 50%. So I've seen coaches up to 80% overhang, and they can be really squirrely to drive. Playing the rear leaf spring shackles, the bushings, and the shackles or bushings, those things all affect it. The track bar on the rear does basically the same thing as on the front. We attach to the axle up to the frame, similar kind of a thing. Sway.
And tag axles.
Tag axles they're not as bad because they help stabilize things. Yeah. So sway. We affectionately call this the Walmart wobble. Anybody ever experienced that?
Yes.
So sway, when you go around a corner, it's pushing down on this side, trying to lift up on this side. So an anti-sway bar helps hold, it's pushing down here, and it's going to push down here and help keep this vehicle from lifting. That's why anti-sway bar diameter is important. So inadequate sway bars, weak springs, worn out shock absorber, and bad sway bar bushings can all cause that. Or lack of air spring control. Now, you can be thankful that I didn't bring one of these 100-pound sway bars in here to pass around. You can see diameter is important. For every 1/8 of an inch we increase the sway bar diameter, we pick up 30% more roll resistance. And a lot of like the auxiliary kit we use on the workhorse and the Ford, we're not taking off the factory sway bar, we're actually adding on a whole other sway bar. For the Sprinter chassis, we put on an auxiliary sway bar in the back of it as well. Coil springs for the P chassis. There's no P chassis motorhomes in here today. I know there may be 1 or 2 of them out there somewhere. Shock absorbers, the right shock absorbers are very important to control sway, and the motion control units on the airbags. I will pass around.
I have a question for you
Yes.
on the shock absorbers. I've read a lot of information out there regarding the difference between Tony and Bilstein shocks. Is there really, in your opinion, one better than the other?
It depends on the application that we're working with. I used to use Bilsteins all the time, but we ran into applications where we're getting too much porpoising out of them and ride quality wasn't as good. The Bilstein shock is a monopressure monotube shock, which means is that they run a single tube in there and they run a high pressure gas. And typically, with a Coney shock, it's going to have less resistance on the way down. You'll see how this goes in easy, but it comes out harder. So they're both double action, but Coney's going to let it give more typically on the way down and control it more on the way back up. So if you push this in and pull it out, you'll feel the difference in it. And this is the FSD, that stands for frequency selective damping. Inside of here, there's 2 valves in the piston head, and one only stays open for a split second. And it helps filter out the high frequency vibrations, the harshness in the road. As a kid, my dad always made me bleed the shocks before you put them on there. I had to pull them in and out, and then turn them upside down. Anybody know about that?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and to get all the air out of the valves. So I had to do this on lots and lots of shocks. And I use those Gabriel adjustable leads, man. I got to where I could rip those beer cab, all those plastic lid. I was so used to pulling those. And so, anyway, the age-old problem's always been, hang on a second, is you get a really good shock, you feel every bump in the road. You know, every pebble, you just, harshness. Handle good, but it rode hard. So FSD, in my opinion, is one of the biggest breakthroughs and designs they've made in motorhome shocks. It actually came from Formula One road racing. Their design originally came from there. But it filters out the high frequency vibrations, takes that initial hard hit away so you can ramp it up more when you need it. And in our brochure, which we have a catalog, there's a chart in there which explains how that works. You had a question back there?
Yeah, I have the Coney FSDs in my coach.
My biggest problem is that when we hit a bump in the road, it's that initial jar. It's like you're getting slammed into a wall practically. What can we do to help that go away?
What kind of coach is it?
Beaver Monterey,
Beaver Monterey, what year?
2005.
So how many shocks you have on that?
8, I think.
8, okay. What did it have on there before you had this?
Bilsteins.
How did it ride down?
Not as well, but same type of problem.
Yeah. So usually that's one of the.
I mean, it
reasons-
improved it.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
your teeth still
Yeah.
feel like they're going to shadow you.
Well,
with the
I'll tell you
bumps.
what I don't want to get so tight up, I'm gonna run out of time here, but anyway, with an 8-bag air suspension, you have a lot of unsprung weight. Anything from the airbags down is called unsprung weight. And you have these long H-beams, all that support, all that steel has to support that whole chassis. The axle and all that, all those arms and everything goes with it. So when you hit a bump, all that energy is being driven down, and it's got to change directions and go back up the other way. Now I know Monaco Roadmaster has tried a lot over the years. They tried to go to larger diameter lines on the airbags. They went to like 3/4 air lines. They're trying to soften it up, trying to increase the volume on it. So that has been a challenge with that. I would want to know for tire sizes you have on there, what kind of pressures you're carrying your tires. Have you scaled it and weighed it and set the pressures based on the weight? Because if we could drop that pressure down safely, 5 or 10 pounds, we could improve the ride quality as well. And so I will be around. We don't have anybody coming in this room afterwards, so I'll stick around and answer as many questions as I can here today. But for those of you that are on a time schedule, I'm gonna do my best to try to get through this material, and I'll take questions
Real quick,
afterward.
when you're done, I'll talk to you about that too, on something we found on one just like
Okay.
it that most people will never find.
Okay, this is another product that we're using on the gas chassis with the leaf springs. We're using these on the Sprinter chassis as well, but this is called the Sumo spring. This material, see I have a little sample of it, and this is a sample. A German company figured out a way to inject nitrogen into urethane, and they sell this, and they call it Sumo springs, and they help with your body roll, and they help take out some of your bounce out of the corners. You can see the material. I'll pass it around there. And we saw a lot of those as well. In fact, those were on our coach from the factory. Tiffin uses a lot of those. Anybody, any Tiffin owners in here? Okay, yeah, we have an article that Roughing It Smoothly magazine did on our coach in there. I don't know if we have any with us here, but do we have any? I think we have some over at the booth. So if you have a Ford F-53, that's what we have. Okay, motion control units, we talked about that. I haven't passed those around yet. I am going to pass those around. Okay, I have 2 of them here. One of them has, these are not, you're going to be happy I didn't take the real airbags out of a motorhome either. These are little air sleeves, they're called. So you can squeeze this one and then squeeze the one with the motion control unit on there. It's like a shock absorber for the air system. We regulate the airflow in and out of your airbag, so it's not free to dump. One side's unloaded, the other one's loading up. So you can squeeze these and feel the difference in them. And these have been a real wonderful product. In fact, we put these all by themselves and on your, didn't that make a huge difference? Yeah, it's unbelievable.
Yeah.
So you squeeze one and then squeeze the other one.
Switch.
Getting some isometrics here today. Guys gonna be hungry after you go to this seminar. Okay, so you can see where they go. The idea is you want to get them close to the airbag, so we try to nip that airflow in the butt so it doesn't have a chance to take off so quick on them. Another picture there. Okay, porpoising. The other day a guy called me and said his dolphin was porpoising. They had an identity problem, right? So, what causes porpoising? Worn out shock absorbers can cause it, or the wrong shock absorber with the incorrect valving in it. Those are usually things that contribute to porpoising. If you had a severe weight difference too, it's going to lend itself to more porpoising as well, for lots of overhang. So right shock absorbers can help it. There's a Coney shock, there's Road King. I talked to somebody that said Road King shocks on their motorhome. We have a lot of experience with those. And of course, Bilstein. And they, the larger bore shocks do help. They have more control in them. But I can talk more about it. I want to get through the material here and we'll take questions afterward. Harsh ride, what causes harsh rides? We talked about shock absorbers, too tough of shocks, incorrect tire pressure, springs that are too stiff, or in your case, lots of unsprung weight can lead to that. And there's a possibility, there's some other things you could do to maybe soften that up. We talked about tire pressure. I did want to mention a new suspension that we're testing underneath our motorhome. And we probably, if we wanted to, I have to ask my wife on this one, we take people out for rides, let them see. We're actually running a liquid spring suspension underneath our coach. And we're using a compressible, it's a compressible fluid. You know, the theory of physics says you can compress a gas, but you can't compress a liquid. Well, this is silicone fluid. You can actually compress it 5%. So we can really control the low speed sway with this because air is very volatile. It has a high compression factor. So at low speed you get a lot of this. With this, it's a computer controlled suspension with a big giant struts on it. We're literally riding on a hill, a big hill of silicone fluid as you go down the road. So you can see the differences in how they handle 53%. 50% reduction cornering at aggressive corner at 25, 40% reduction. This is on a Class C, but our Class A motorhome actually handled better with my double sway bar kits and shocks on it at high speed. And but at low speed, much better, and the ride quality is phenomenal on it. I'm going to see if there's anything I can do to take some of the high speed looseness out of it. And but it certainly is a phenomenal suspension. I think it's going to become being used on some of our upper end diesel swishers. I think they probably will go to the suspension. It's pretty amazing. And we have some brochures on it. On our website, you can go on. We have tons of videos. Like I said, we're an educational company. We run a school once a year, Motorhome Steering and Suspension Institute. And I do clinics around the country teaching other folks how to do this process that we've developed for determining what the steering and handling problems are. So we don't want to let poor RV handling ruin your fun. And we also, we're going to be doing complimentary inspections. You can get with us. We'll sign you up after the seminar is over. And if you needed anything done here locally, that our folks here can help you at Bayshore, they're here as well. On your motorhome's parked right outside of the tent there. So this is some of the things I found at some past inspections. I found it had a broken shot. One guy wasn't wearing that. This is actually a pretty new Ford, like a 2016 Ford. One of the tie rod boosts was completely blown out on it. Another guy just had a brake job done, and he had a caliper that was hanging up. He had a pad transfer on a workforce motorhome. This is on a Ford motorhome, ruptured split sway bar bushings. And like I said, the last one we did, we found that guy's axle was ready to fall out on his rig. So we thank you for